Hey there, language learners. It's your trusted teacher, Izzy from English with Izzy. Welcome back to another exciting language journey on my channel. Are you ready to dive into the captivating world of English grammar? Well, you're in the right place. Today, we're tackling conditionals, those magical structures that transform how you express yourself in English. Now, why are conditionals so crucial? Well, they're like the secret keys to unlock endless conversational possibilities. Whether you're dreaming about the future, imagining hypothetical scenarios, or even just making polite requests, mastering conditionals elevates your English skills. We'll break down each type of conditional, from the real world first conditional to the imaginative third conditional, and more. When you grasp the core concepts, you'll naturally use them effectively. Now, are you excited to level up your English game and have fun? Hit the subscribe button and ring the bell for grammar-packed adventures. Together, let's master conditionals and watch your language skills soar. All right, enough chit-chat, let's dive in. So what we're going to talk about today are the four basic conditionals: the zero conditional, the first, the second, and the third conditional in order. We'll talk about their grammatical structure, the maths or the equation behind it, so you can copy and paste and use it yourself. And I'll also give you lots of examples of each one, just so it makes a little bit more sense. All right, we're going to start off with the zero conditional, which grammatically is the easiest one. As we go to the first, the second, and then the third, the grammar gets a little bit more difficult, but also the structures get even more impressive. So don't be afraid, because I'm going to show you how to use all of them confidently today. The zero conditional, simply put, is used when we want to talk about either general truths, habits, or facts. So things that don't change. Essentially, it's like saying, if this happens, then this happens. That's just the way the world works. And for that reason, when we use the zero conditional, we use if, plus the present simple and the present simple again. For example, if I smell pizza, in general, I feel happy. If this thing happens, then this automatically happens as a result. There's no condition, really. We're just talking about facts in life. Another example of a zero conditional is, if I walk in the rain without an umbrella, I get wet. A third example for you guys is, if prices go up, people suffer, right? It's just a fact, it's a truth. If this happens, this happens. So nice and simple. But as we move on to the first conditional, the grammar gets a little bit more complicated, because we're not just using the present tense, we're also going to use the future. Now, we use the first conditional when we're talking about things that are possible or likely to happen in the future. So these are real world situations. They're not imaginary or hypothetical situations yet. The grammar we use for this one is if, plus the present simple, and then we use will and the bare infinitive, which is the infinitive with no to. So, if this happens, which could happen, it's probable, it's likely, then this will happen in the future. For example, if I run out of coffee, it could happen, it happens to me once a month, then there will be chaos in the house because I'm absolutely addicted to coffee. So it's not a crazy hypothetical situation, it's a realistic example, right? Another example is, if I manage to finish all of my tasks today, it's possible, it could happen, then I will feel much better. A third example is, if my mum calls me, there's a good chance that she will, but I'm not 100% sure. But if my mum calls me in the present tense, then I will pick up the phone. So if this happens, then this will happen. Nice and simple. You may be thinking, oh, okay, conditionals are not the crazy complicated grammar that I thought it would be, but wait till we get to the second conditional, because we're not just using the present tense anymore. we're going to the past. Now, we use the second conditional not when we're talking about probable or realistic future situations, but we're going to make it more hypothetical now and more unrealistic. So we mainly use it in two different situations. We use it when something is completely impossible in the present tense. For example, if I were a man, but it's not true, it's not a real situation, right? And we also use it for very unlikely things in the future. So let's look at an example first of a completely impossible present situation. If I were invisible, which I'm not, it's not real, then I would probably use my powers to mess with my friends' minds during Zoom calls. So for the second conditional, the grammar or the formula, as you may call it, is if plus the past simple. So if this happened, then this would happen. So if plus the past simple, and then in the second part we use would and the bare infinitive. Another example of a second conditional sentence is if I had $1, a pound, a euro, whichever currency you prefer, for every time I didn't do the work I needed to, then I would have enough money to buy a huge house. But I don't have $1 for every time I didn't work because it's not a real situation, right? No one's going to give me money for not doing work. Now, here's an example of a very unlikely and extremely unrealistic possibility in the future, right? If I moved to a big house in the countryside this year, which is impossible, I can't buy a house this year to live in the countryside, then I would be over the moon, but it's not realistic. If I ate McDonald's every day for a month, then I would probably have terrible skin, but it's not going to happen. It's a very unlikely situation. So whenever we're talking about hypothetical situations, we almost always use the second conditional. If I won the lottery, which is probably not going to happen to any of us in this lifetime, right? Then I would, and you can talk about the things that you would do, the things that you would buy, or the places that you would travel to. All right, you may be thinking, second conditional, past simple, would. I got it, not too hard, but wait till you get to the third conditional because this is where the grammar really starts to mess with your mind. Now, we use the third conditional when we're talking about completely unreal past situations. So basically things that didn't happen in the past. And as a result, we use it a lot to talk about things that we regret doing, things that we regret not doing, or something that didn't happen. For example, my mum is from Turkey, but she never spoke in Turkish to me when I was a child, and as a result, I can't speak Turkish. So if she had spoken Turkish to me, which she didn't, then I would have learnt how to speak Turkish, right? But this is not a situation that happened because the contrary is what happened. She didn't speak to me in Turkish, therefore I didn't learn. Another example is if I had prepared all of my meals on Sunday, then I wouldn't have had to cook every day for the next week. But I'm not that organized, so I didn't cook all my meals on Sunday, and I did have to cook every day for the next week. But I'm just thinking about an alternative reality in the past. So maybe you had already figured it out, but the structure that we use for the third conditional is if plus the past perfect. So if this had happened, but it didn't. And then we use would have and the past participle. This would have happened, but in reality, it didn't, right? So for example, if I had washed my clothes this morning, but I didn't because I preferred to stay in bed for an extra half an hour. But if I had washed my clothes in the morning, then I would have had a more productive morning. But I didn't, because every now and then you just need to stay in bed and not worry about the washing. Here's an example of mentioning a regret that I have using the third conditional. For for example. I'm going to give you an example in the negative just to show you that we don't always have to put it in the positive or in the affirmative, right? But if I hadn't been so shy, then maybe I would have made more friends here in Spain a little bit earlier. But the reality is I was very shy, so I didn't make friends right at the beginning. Now, we've gone through the basic conditionals, right? The 0, the first, the second, and the third. And this is a great introduction to intermediate grammar. We looked at the 0 conditional, which we use when we're talking about facts, when we're talking about general truths. We looked at the first conditional, which we use to talk about possibilities, right? Or realistic situations in the future. We looked at the second conditional, which talks about very unlikely situations, hypothetical situations, or unreal situations in the future. And last but not least, we looked at the third conditional, which talks about completely unreal situations in the past. I'm going to put a quick summary here on the screen so you guys can take a screenshot and print it and use it to study at home. Just because I know that that's exactly what you want to do today, is to pull out your grammar worksheets, get studying. Well, if you stayed here till the end and you're still watching this grammar video, then you're probably one of the very few that's crazy about English grammar, that loves learning more and wants to be the best version of themselves in English. So well done you. Anyway, there you have it, guys. We have gone through a journey of the fascinating world of conditionals, from the solid truths of the 0 conditional to the exciting possibilities of the first, the imaginative leaps of the second, and the regretful reflections of the third. Remember, mastering these conditionals opens the door to dynamic communication, and it's an impressive grammar structure to use in your English exam. Now, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with fellow language lovers, with your friends, with your grandma, with your mum, maybe with your neighbor, I don't know who you're friends with, and subscribe for more language tips. Keep practicing those conditionals and I'll catch you in the next enriching lesson. Stay curious, stay learning.